I'm Dave. I'm in my office. You probably have seen this picture, Vintage Dave shot, and folks that work with me, they like all these old shots because I'm old. This one was taken in 1986 in the Ironman race, and it looks like I'm wearing kind of hot pants. Not really sure what that attire was, but a floppy jersey on top, hardly the technological designs of the Dave Scott Hoob line that you're all wearing now, but that was the attire that I picked for that year, and obviously I'm out of the saddle on this particular shot. It's one of the things that I have always talked about, even from my early days in the sport and going back to this 1986 shot, is that you want to stand up early, and there's several lessons on standing up. So I want to put this one, number one, stand up early, and I mean really early. When you get out of the swim, your back has tightened up, particularly as you're picking your head up, so all the muscles in your spine start to shorten a little bit. If your hip flexors are tight, that can really pull on your low back, and some people get out of the swim and say, gosh, my low back really hurts. So number one, if you stand up within the first 5 miles, the first 8K of your ride, and make sure that you're in a gear that's not too fast, so you're not like a hamster on a wheel and you're running on it so you overload your quads. It should be a little slower gear, not overly big, and when you stand up, it's real smooth. A couple things when you stand up, your hands should be real light. So in other words, you shouldn't stand up and pull on it like you're going up a 20% gradient. Your hands are just kind of milking the bars. They're very, very light. Head is nice and high. Hips are just over your saddle. And why do you do that? Well, partly it'll help innervate your glutes a little bit, and you want your glutes to activate right away as opposed to trying to get your quads going. Make sure your glutes are firing, and it'll stretch out your back a little bit and also stretch out your hip flexors. So stand up at the outset. Number two, when you sit down, you want to go to a lower gear. In other words, a little easier gear. So I stand up, my RPMs will be in the low to mid 70s. Now when I sit down again, you want to be about 2 or 3% faster than your normal cadence. And the reason is when you stand up, if you're not adequately warmed up, you're going to start firing some of those fast twitch muscle fibers. And you want actually the faster RPMs, so typically 2 or 3% higher than what you normally would be riding at. So if I normally ride it at 90, I might be at 93 or 94. It doesn't seem like a lot, but just slightly faster as you sit down. And then you can go to a slightly bigger gear if it feels good. So you make the transition standing to seated, lower gear. The third thing that I did all the time, and I'm trying to figure out where that picture was taken, but somewhere on the Queen K course, I stand up and use a combination of standing and seated all the time. I've always done it in my races, and I'll never forget this comment in a short race at River Cities, Shreveport, Louisiana, and I was able to win the race. This was years back, and the guy who came in second, he goes, I can't believe how much you stand up. He said it wasn't really hilly, and I said, I just like standing up because it stretches me out. This thing that you want to keep in mind is that as you stand up, you increase the frontal drag. So when you stand up, it can be for really short periods, 5 to 8 seconds, you're up, and then you're back down in your arrow position again. So the standing shouldn't be for 30 seconds to a minute. The last one is that as you're preparing for the run, make sure that you're staying up near the end, because obviously you're going to be elongated, you're going to be stretching out as you start the run. And so I think it's really important at the very end of the race, and I've seen this in Kona where people are coming in, it's pretty fast in the last 12 or 15 miles. I rarely see people stand up. And I think if there's a lesson to be learned on the run segment, particularly in your Ironman distance races, it's all about the run. And people will say, no, there's been a few years where the cyclist has won. Yes, I won't take that away by any means. Norman Stadler's great cyclist, Sebastian Kienle, great cyclist. But typically you have to have a great run, and you set that up on the bike.